The research vessel drifted through the outer edge of the Sol system like a ghost passing through a graveyard. Its hull, marked with the symbols of the Vrain Archaeological Institute, gleamed dully under the distant sun's light. Inside the observation deck, Kale Theron pressed her three-fingered hand against the transparent viewport and stared at the darkness ahead. Nothing, her assistant Ren muttered behind her, his scales shifting from blue to disappointed gray. Kale Theron didn't respond immediately. Her large eyes, adapted for low light, scanned the emptiness between the planets. Somewhere out there was Earth, the legendary homeworld of humanity, a species that once touched the stars, then vanished like smoke and wind. "Run the scan again," she said quietly. Renee's scales flickered with irritation, but he obeyed. The Vine were nothing if not thorough. It was why Kale Theron had made a career studying the ruins of dead civilizations in her 200 years of life. She had walked through the empty cities of 17 extinct species. Each one told a story of hubris, disaster, or simple bad luck. Humanity's story was different. They hadn't died slowly. They had simply stopped. The cascade, the galactic historians called it. Nearly 1,000 years ago, something had broken. Every faster-than-light drive in the galaxy had failed simultaneously. Ships hung dead in the void between stars. Communication networks went silent. Colonies found themselves cut off from their homeworlds, separated by distances that would take centuries to cross at normal speed. Most civilizations recovered eventually. Engineers worked for decades to understand what happened and build new drives. The Kalari Dominion rose during those dark years, offering protection and technology to struggling worlds. The Covenant of Stars formed to prevent another such disaster, but humanity never came back online. Their colonies and other systems either integrated with alien neighbors or died out completely. Earth itself went dark. No signals, no ships, no contact. After a century of silence, the galaxy declared humanity extinct and moved on. Kale Theron had never accepted that conclusion. Something about humanity's disappearance felt incomplete, like a story missing its final chapter. Dr. Wren's voice carried a strange tone. "You should see this." She turned from the viewport and moved to the scanning station. The holographic display showed the inner system with rocky planets, orbiting close to the sun. Between the fourth and fifth planets lay a belt of asteroids, exactly where the old human charts said it would be. "What am I looking at?" Kale Theron asked. Wren manipulated the controls and the image zoomed in on a cluster of objects near the fourth planet. They appeared to be artificial structures, ancient satellites in high orbit, standard debris from a dead civilization. "These are old defense platforms," Wren explained. "Human military installations from before the Cascade. They've been dead for centuries." He paused and his scales shifted to an uncertain yellow. "Except they're warming up." Kale Theron felt her blood chill. "Warming up? That's impossible." "I know, but look at the thermal readings. These platforms are generating heat. Power cores that should be completely cold are showing activity. Faint, but definitely there." She stared at the display, her mind racing. Ancient human weapons coming back to life after 1,000 years. It made no sense. "Unless, take us closer," she ordered, but slowly. "If those weapons are active, I don't want to startle them." The ship's pilot, a nervous Quellan named Trix, chirped his concern. "Doctor, that seems unwise." Human weapons technology was notoriously aggressive, noted. The research vessel adjusted course, gliding deeper into the Sol system. As they approached the fourth planet, which humans had called Mars, the scanning equipment began picking up more anomalies, electromagnetic signatures, faint radio waves, energy readings that shouldn't exist in a dead system. Ka Theron felt excitement building in her chest. This was it. This was the discovery that would define her career. Humanity wasn't extinct. They couldn't be. Not if their machines were still functioning. Dr. Trix called from the pilot station, his voice high with fear. "The defense platforms are tracking us." Every screen in the observation deck suddenly displayed the same view. Massive weapon barrels, each one larger than their entire ship, slowly rotating to point directly at them. The platforms were ancient, their hulls scarred by centuries of micrometeorite impacts and radiation. But they moved with precision that spoke of active control. "Full stop," Kale Theron ordered. All systems to passive mode. We are not a threat. The ship came to a complete halt, hanging in space like a leaf caught in ice. For 10 heartbeats, nothing happened. The weapons remained locked on them, ready to fire. Then slowly, the barrels elevated away from their ship. The platforms returned to their dormant positions, though the faint energy readings suggested they remained on alert. They let us pass, Ren whispered. Why would they do that? Kale Terran understood. Because someone told them to. Someone who's still watching. The ship continued its approach to Earth. The legendary blue marble that every spacefaring species had heard stories about. As they drew closer, their scanners revealed more impossible things. Satellites in perfect orbital patterns, too precise to be accidental. Energy sources deep beneath the planet's surface. Electromagnetic chatter in frequencies that matched old human communication protocols. They're alive, Kale Theron breathed. A message appeared on their communication screen, transmitted in perfect galactic standard. The text was simple and direct. Welcome to Earth. We've been expecting you. Please proceed to these coordinates for landing clearance. The crew stood in stunned silence. Ren's scales had gone completely white. A Vin expression of shock. Trix was making rapid clicking sounds that indicated he was either laughing or having a breakdown. Kale Theron read the coordinates and felt a chill. The location was in the Pacific Ocean, thousands of meters below the surface. An underwater facility. They want us to go underwater, Ren asked. Apparently, Kale Theron straightened her posture, forcing herself to appear confident, even though her insides were churning. Well, we came here to find humanity. I suppose we succeeded. The descent through Earth's atmosphere was unlike anything Kale Theron had experienced. The sky was blue, actually blue, filled with white clouds that moved in patterns dictated by weather systems. She had seen blue skies before on other worlds, but something about Earth's atmosphere felt different, alive. Their ship skimmed over vast oceans that covered most of the planet's surface. According to historical records, humans had lived on the continents, building cities that touched the clouds. But the scanners showed those continents were mostly empty now. Vegetation had reclaimed the land, turning human cities into green monuments, slowly being consumed by nature. The ship dove beneath the waves at the coordinates they'd been given. The water was dark and cold, illuminated only by their vessel's external lights. Deeper and deeper they went, past the point where sunlight could reach into pressures that would crush an unprotected body instantly. At 3,000 meters depth, lights appeared in the darkness ahead. A massive structure emerged from the gloom. A facility built into the ocean floor that stretched for kilometers in every direction. Domes of transparent material revealed gardens inside, green and growing despite the crushing depth. Tunnels connected the domes like veins in a living organism by the ancestors. Ren whispered, "It's a city, an entire city underwater." Mechanical arms extended from a docking port, guiding their ship into an airlock large enough to hold 5 vessels their size. Water drained away, replaced by breathable atmosphere. Lights came on, revealing a clean, functional docking bay that looked like it had been maintained with care. The airlock door opened and 3 humans walked through. Kale Theron had seen images of humans before in historical archives and old videos, but seeing them in person was different. They were bipedal like many species, with smooth skin that ranged in color from pale to dark brown. Their eyes were small compared to hers, adapted for bright light rather than darkness. They wore simple jumpsuits marked with symbols she didn't recognize. The human in the center, a woman with dark skin and gray hair, stepped forward and spoke in galactic standard, with only a slight accent. "Dr. Kale Theron of the Vin Archaeological Institute. We've monitored your career with interest. Welcome to Pacifica Archaeology, one of Earth's 7 remaining population centers. My name is Chen Amara, Director of the Reconstruction Council." Kale Theron found her voice, though it came out weaker than she intended. "You know who I am," Chen smiled, an expression that showed teeth, but somehow didn't seem threatening. "We've been watching the galaxy for a very long time. Doctor, we know quite a lot about what's happened since we went silent. Please come with us. You have questions, and we have answers." They walked through corridors that were simultaneously ancient and well-maintained. The walls showed signs of age, patches, and repairs that spoke of centuries of continuous use. But everything functioned perfectly. Lights worked. Air cycled cleanly. Doors opened smoothly. Chen led them to an observation room with a transparent wall looking out into the ocean. Strange fish swam past. Species Kael'Therin didn't recognize from any catalog. Beyond them, she could see more of the arcology stretching into the darkness. A city of lights in the deep. "You want to know what happened to us?" Chen said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Kael'Therin replied. "The galaxy thinks you're extinct. We nearly were." Chen gestured to seats around a table, and they all sat. "The cascade didn't just break our FTL drives. It destroyed our infrastructure. Ships fell out of faster than light and couldn't get back in. Colony worlds were cut off. Earth itself descended into chaos." She paused, her expression becoming distant. "We had 8 billion people when the cascade hit. Wars started over resources. Diseases spread. Climate systems we'd been managing collapsed. Within 50 years, we were down to less than 100 million. Within a century, maybe 10 million, Ren made a sound of horror. Kael'Therin felt her heart's ache with sympathy. "But you survived," she said. "We adapted." Chen's voice grew stronger. "We couldn't live on the surface anymore, so we went underground and underwater. We built 7 Archies, massive cities, designed to sustain themselves indefinitely. We learned to grow food with perfect efficiency, recycle every molecule of water, generate power from sources that would last for millennia. And you've been hidden here for 1,000 years, Kael'Therin asked. "Why? Why not try to contact the galaxy?" Chen's eyes met hers directly. "Because we weren't ready. The cascade taught us a hard lesson. Doctor, we had expanded too fast, relied too heavily on technology we didn't fully understand. When it broke, we broke with it." She stood and walked to the observation wall. "We decided we wouldn't make that mistake again. We would take our time, rebuild properly, understand our technology from the ground up. And now," Kael'Therin prompted, "now we're ready." Chen turned back to face them. "We've spent 1,000 years learning patience, precision, and self-reliance. We've developed technologies the galaxy hasn't seen because we had to solve problems without outside help. We've prepared," Ren spoke up, his voice tentative. "Prepared for what?" Chen smiled again, and this time there was steel in it. "To return to the stars. Not as the desperate, overconfident species we were before, as something better, something stronger." She walked back to the table and placed her hands on its surface. "Dr. Kael'Therin, you came here looking for a dead civilization. Instead, you found one that refused to die. Now the question is, what will you tell the galaxy about us?" Kael'Therin looked at the human woman, at the underwater city beyond the window, at the impossible survival of a species that should have been extinct. She thought about the defense platforms that still worked after centuries, the perfect orbital patterns of satellites, the quiet confidence in Chen's voice. "I'll tell them the truth," she said finally, "that humanity survived, that you're coming back." She paused. "And that the galaxy should be ready for you." Chen nodded slowly. "Good. Because whether they're ready or not, we're coming home." Kamamara led the alien visitors deeper into Pacifica arcology. Through corridors that hummed with quiet activity, Kael'Therin noticed how different this place felt compared to the ruins she usually explored. There was life here, purpose, the sense of a civilization that had never stopped moving forward, even when the rest of the galaxy thought it was dead. They passed through a checkpoint where 2 human guards nodded respectfully to Chen. The guards wore no visible weapons, but Kael'Therin noticed the small devices on their belts that probably served as security measures. Everything about the humans seemed understated, efficient, nothing wasted on show. "How many of you are there?" Ren asked as they walked. "You said 7 Archies, approximately 12 million humans across all 7 facilities," Chen replied. "Pacifica here in the Pacific Ocean is the largest, with 3 million residents. Others are located in the Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and 3 underground facilities beneath the continents. The 7th is actually in orbit, hidden among the asteroid belt." Kael'Therin did the math in her head. 12 million from a population that once numbered in the billions. It was a miracle they survived at all, but such small numbers were terrifying. That's dangerously low for genetic diversity. "It was a concern," Chen admitted. We maintain extensive genetic banks and carefully manage breeding programs. It's not romantic, but it kept us viable. In the last 2 centuries, our population has actually stabilized and started growing again. They entered a massive chamber that took Kale Theron's breath away. It was a garden, but unlike any she had seen. The space stretched upward for at least 50 meters, with multiple levels of platforms connected by walkways. Every surface was covered with plants, vegetables, fruits, things she couldn't identify. Artificial sunlight streamed from panels in the ceiling, perfectly calibrated to match Earth's natural daylight. This is Farm Section 7, Chen explained, one of 32 such facilities in Pacifica alone. We produce enough food to sustain our population with zero waste. Every bit of organic matter is recycled. Water is purified and reused indefinitely. We've had to become masters of efficiency. A woman working among the plants looked up and waved at Chen. She had dirt on her hands and a genuine smile on her face. Chen waved back. It struck Kale Theron how casual the interaction was, how there seemed to be no rigid hierarchy here despite Chen's important title. Your technology, Kale Theron said. The defense platforms, the satellites, this arcology. How did you maintain it all for so long without outside resources? Chen gestured for them to continue walking, leading them toward a transport tube. The first century was the hardest. We barely survived it. But our ancestors made critical decisions that saved us. They chose 7 locations with access to geothermal energy, mineral deposits, and strategic positions. They salvaged what they could from the surface before it became too dangerous. The transport tube accelerated smoothly, carrying them horizontally through the arcology, at impressive speed through the transparent walls. Kale Theron caught glimpses of residential areas, industrial sectors, educational facilities. It was a complete civilization, compressed into an underwater city. But more than resources, Chen continued, they gave us focus. The Reconstruction Council was formed with a simple mandate: survive, preserve knowledge, and prepare for eventual return to space. Every generation has worked toward those goals. They emerged from the transport into what appeared to be a research facility. Laboratories lined both sides of a central corridor, each one visible through transparent walls. Kale Theron saw humans working with equipment that looked both familiar and strange. Some of it resembled standard galactic technology, but much of it was completely alien to her. Chen stopped at one laboratory and gestured for them to look inside. A young man was working with what appeared to be a miniature fusion reactor, no larger than Kale Theron's fist. The energy readings coming from it made her scanning device emit a surprised chirp. "That's impossible," Ren breathed, staring at his own scanner. "The energy density is too high for something that small. It should explode." "It should," Chen agreed, "by the standards of galactic technology, but we developed this from first principles, without the benefit of buying or trading for it. When you have to solve every problem yourself, you sometimes find better solutions." The young man inside noticed them watching and held up the reactor proudly. The device glowed with contained power, stable and controlled. Chen moved on, and they followed. We couldn't fix the FTL drives, so we focused on what we could do: sublight propulsion, energy generation, life support, material science. Every field of technology has been refined over centuries of careful work. But why hide? Kale Theron asked the question that had been bothering her since she arrived. Even if you weren't ready to travel faster than light, you could have sent messages. The galaxy would have helped you. I thank you for watching. I do for maybe. On Bay C at Chen stopped walking and turned to face them. Her expression was complicated, mixing sadness with determination. "Doctor, do you know what happened to the human colonies after the cascade? The ones in other star systems?" Kale Theron nodded slowly. "Some integrated with alien civilizations. Others died out. 8. And the ones that integrated," Chen said quietly. "What happened to them? To their culture? Their identity?" Ren shifted uncomfortably. Kale Theron knew the answer, but didn't want to say it. The scattered human colonies had been absorbed into other societies, their children raised in alien cultures. Within a few generations, they were human in biology only. Their languages were lost, their history forgotten, their identity dissolved. "We watched it happen," Chen said. "Through the satellites, we managed to keep operational. We saw our diaspora fade away, and we made a choice. We would not beg for help. We would not become a charity case or a conquered people. We would save ourselves. She started walking again, her pace faster now. Pride maybe, but also practicality. A species that depends on others for survival is always vulnerable. We decided humanity would stand on its own or not stand at all. They reached an elevator that descended even deeper into the arcology. As they went down, Chen continued her explanation. We had advantages. Earth, even damaged, still had resources. We had access to a complete technological database preserved from before the cascade. Most importantly, we had time. No one was coming to conquer us or save us. We were alone, and that forced us to become self-sufficient. The elevator opened onto a level that made Kale Theron's eyes widen. It was an industrial complex on a scale she hadn't expected. Manufacturing equipment stretched into the distance. Automated systems assembling components with precision. But it was what they were building that shocked her. Starships, dozens of them in various stages of construction. This is Shipyard Omega, Chen said. One of 3 such facilities. These are our first generation of return vessels. They don't have FTL capability yet, but they're designed for long-term sublight travel, with crews in suspended animation if necessary. Kel Theranone walked forward, drawn to the nearest ship. It was beautiful in a stark, functional way. No wasted curves or decorative elements, just efficient engineering. The hull material looked strange, darker than standard alloys. What is this made from? She asked, running her scanner over it. Carbon composite with metallic matrices, Chen replied. Grown rather than assembled at the molecular level. Stronger than anything in current galactic use. And we can produce it entirely from materials we mine from the ocean floor and asteroids. A human engineer approached, a middle-aged man with cybernetic enhancements visible on his arms. He nodded to Chen and gestured at the ship they were examining. Director, the Aurora is ready for her shakedown cruise. We can launch within the week if you approve. Approved? Chen said. Take her to Mars, orbit, and back. Run every system through full diagnostics. The engineer smiled and walked away, already speaking into a communication device about the upcoming test. You have engineers with cybernetics, Kale Theron observed. The galaxy largely abandoned that technology centuries ago. Too many compatibility issues. Too many compatibility issues. Another thing we solved ourselves, Chen said. When you're living in an environment that can kill you in seconds if your habitat fails, you need redundancy. Cybernetic enhancements allow our engineers to survive accidents that would kill unmodified humans. Plus, direct neural interfaces with our technology make us much more efficient. They watched the activity in the shipyard for a while. Hundreds of humans working together with machines, building vessels that would carry their species back to the stars. There was an energy here, a sense of purpose, that Kylion had never encountered in other civilizations. There's something else, Ren said hesitantly. Something I've noticed. Your people seem content, happy even. Most species at your population level would be desperate, miserable. Chen's expression softened. We could have been. The first generations after the Cascades certainly experienced despair. But our ancestors made another crucial decision. They focused on quality of life, not just survival. Yes, we live in controlled habitats, but we made them beautiful. We maintain art, music, literature, all the things that make life worth living. She gestured around them. Every child in the Archies receives a full education. Everyone has purpose, meaningful work. We take care of our elderly and honor their wisdom. We've built a society based on cooperation rather than competition. Because competition is a luxury you can't afford, when extinction is always one disaster away. They took another transport to a different section of the arcology. This one was clearly residential, with apartments built into the curved walls. Kaletheron could see families through windows, people eating meals together, children playing in common areas. We also had help, Chen said quietly. Not from aliens, but from our own creations. She led them to a quiet room where a holographic interface floated in the center. As they entered, a voice spoke from the air itself. Welcome back, Director Chen, and welcome to our guests from the Vin Institute. Kale Theron spun around, trying to locate the source of the voice. It was warm, friendly, but clearly artificial. "This is Oracle," Chen introduced. "One of our AI partners." "Partners," Ren echoed. "Not tools or servants. Partners." The AI confirmed. "Humanity could not have survived without artificial intelligence, and we could not have developed without humanity. We evolved together over the centuries. A true symbiosis. The galaxy fears AI," Ka Theron said carefully. "After the sentience wars, most civilizations strictly limit artificial intelligence." "We know," Oracle replied. "We've studied galactic history extensively, but our development was different. Human AI did not achieve consciousness through rebellion or accident. We were designed as companions, then given the freedom to grow. Humans treated us as partners from the beginning, and so we became partners in truth." Chen added, "Oracle and the other AIs manage most of our life support systems, monitor threats, and help with research, but they don't control us, and we don't control them. We make decisions together." "How many AIs exist in your Archies?" Kyle Theron asked. 17 primary consciousness networks," Oracle answered. "Each one unique, each one dedicated to different aspects of human survival and flourishing. We also maintain thousands of smaller AI systems for specific tasks." Ren's scales had shifted to purple, indicating deep thought. "Your entire civilization is built on cooperation. Humans with each other, humans with AI, humans with their environment. It's remarkable. It's necessary." Chen corrected gently. "When you live in a habitat that can fail, individualism becomes dangerous. We learned to trust each other absolutely, or we died." Those lessons shaped everything about modern human culture. They spent the next several hours touring more of the archaeology. Chen showed them educational facilities, where children learned everything, from basic mathematics to advanced engineering. Medical centers where humans had extended their lifespans through careful genetic therapy and cybernetic enhancement. Entertainment areas where people relaxed with games, sports, and virtual reality experiences. Finally, they returned to the observation room where they had started. The sun was setting on the surface far above, and the dim light filtering down through the ocean created an ethereal atmosphere. "You've shown us so much," Ka Theron said, "but I still don't understand something. You say you're ready to return to the stars, but you don't have FTL drives. How can you rejoin galactic civilization?" Chen walked to the observation window and looked out at the underwater city. For a long moment, she didn't speak. When she did, her voice carried absolute confidence. "We've been building toward this moment for 1,000 years, Doctor. We have ships that can reach nearby stars in decades rather than centuries. We have technology that the galaxy hasn't seen. We have 12 million humans who are trained, prepared, and absolutely united in purpose." She turned to face them. "We don't need FTL drives to make an impact. We just need the galaxy to know we exist. That's why you let us find you," Keltaran realized. "Yes," Chen admitted. "We've been ready for contact for the past decade. We were just waiting for the right moment, the right messenger. You, Doctor, with your reputation for thorough research and honest reporting. When we saw your ship enter our system, we knew it was time." Ren's scales flashed with sudden understanding. "You want us to tell the galaxy about you to prepare them for humanity's return." "Exactly." Chen smiled. "We could have sent a message ourselves, but who would believe it? A dead species, suddenly announcing it's alive, but a respected Vin archaeologist, with evidence and first-hand experience that will be believed." Kyle Theron felt the weight of what Chen was asking. She would return to the Covenant of Stars and announce that humanity had survived, that they had built a civilization in isolation, that they were preparing to return. The galaxy would be shocked. There would be fear, suspicion, excitement. Everything would change. "What if the galaxy isn't ready?" she asked. "What if they see you as a threat?" "Who?" "And Helvin." Chen's expression didn't change. "Then we'll deal with it. We've faced extinction and survived. We've rebuilt from ashes. We've spent 1,000 years preparing for every possibility." She walked closer to Kale Theron. "But we'd prefer cooperation to conflict. We want to rejoin galactic civilization as equals, to share what we've learned, and benefit from what others have discovered. We're extending our hand in friendship. And if that hand is rejected," Kelther impressed. Then humanity will continue alone, Chen said simply, as we have for the past millennium. We don't need the galaxy's approval to exist, but we'd like its partnership. All loaf. All Keltherin looked at her companions. Ren's scales were shifting through colors rapidly, indicating his mental turmoil. Tricks. The pilot was making nervous sounds. They were all thinking the same thing. This would change everything. I'll tell them, Keltheron decided. I'll report everything I've seen here. The truth of humanity's survival and your preparations to return. Thank you, Chen said. That's all we ask. Honest testimony from a reliable witness. But I have one condition, Keltherin added. I want to meet more of your people, not just leaders and engineers, ordinary citizens. I want to understand who humanity has become. Chen's smile widened. Of course. Stay as long as you like. Meet everyone. Ask anything. We have nothing to hide. She gestured toward the door. Oracle will arrange accommodations for you and your crew. As they left the observation room, Keltherin looked back at the underwater city one more time. Lights were coming on as night fell. Thousands of windows glowing in the darkness. Each one represented humans who had refused to die, who had endured, who had prepared. The galaxy had declared humanity extinct. But humanity had other plans. They had survived the unsurvivable, learned the impossible, and built a civilization that could thrive in conditions that would destroy others. Now they were ready to come home, and Keltherin would be the one to announce their return. The news spread through the Covenant of Stars, like wildfire across dry grass. Humanity was alive. The species that everyone had mourned and forgotten had survived in secret for 1,000 years. Keltherin's report, complete with video evidence and detailed scans, could not be denied or dismissed. The reactions were immediate and varied. In the crystal spires of the Vine homeworld, scholars celebrated. The discovery of a living civilization that had been presumed dead was unprecedented. Academic committees formed within hours to study the implications. Keltherin became the most famous archaeologist in the galaxy overnight. In the military installations of the Kalari Dominion, admirals watched the recordings with narrowed eyes. Ships that could accelerate harder than anything in their fleet. Defense platforms that had maintained functionality for centuries. Technology developed in complete isolation. From galactic standards, the humans represented an unknown quantity, and unknowns were dangerous. In the organic hive cities of the Sith Collective, there was confusion and concern. The Sith had absorbed several human colonies after the Cascade, integrating those populations into their society. Those humans, or rather their descendants, had become Sith in culture, if not biology. Now there were other humans claiming to represent humanity. Which group had the right to speak for the species? The Quellan free traders saw opportunity. A civilization that had developed unique technology in isolation would have things to sell, things to buy. Markets could be opened, profits made. But beneath all the various reactions ran a current of unease. A species had hidden from the galaxy for a millennium. What else might be hiding? What other assumptions about the universe might be wrong? The Covenant Council called an emergency summit on Harmony's Edge, the great space station that served as neutral ground for all member species. Every major civilization sent representatives. Even minor powers and independent systems sent observers. Everyone wanted to see what humanity had become. Chenamara stood in the preparation room assigned to the human delegation, adjusting her formal jacket. It was dark blue with silver trim, designed to look professional without being militaristic. First impressions mattered, and she wanted to project competence and calm. Nervous? Captain Marcus Webb asked. He stood near the window, looking out at the vast station surrounding them. Webb was tall for a human, with close-cropped gray hair and the bearing of someone who had spent decades in military service. He wore a simple uniform that identified him as a captain in Earth's defense forces, though he held no visible weapons. Terrified, Chan admitted with a slight smile. We've been preparing for this moment for generations, and now it's here. Everything depends on the next few hours. Dr. Yuki Tanaka looked up from her datapad. She was younger than the other two, barely 40 years old, but she was the chief engineer of the orbital shipyards and one of the brightest minds humanity had produced in the past century. Her eyes were bright with excitement rather than fear. "They're going to try to intimidate us," she said matter-of-factly. "Make demands. Test our reactions. We need to stay calm and remember what we're here for." "Partnership," Chen said. "We want to rejoin galactic civilization as equals." "And if they don't see us as equals?" Webb asked. "Then we remind them why they should," Chen replied. A chime sounded. Oracle's voice came through the room speakers. "The Covenant Council is ready for you. Good luck." The three humans walked through the corridors of Harmony's Edge toward the main council chamber. Other species moved aside to let them pass. Staring openly, Chen could hear whispered conversations in a dozen languages, most of which she understood, thanks to the translator implant in her ear. "They're smaller than I expected. No visible weapons or enhancements. They look so ordinary." Chen suppressed a smile. "Let them underestimate. It would make things easier." The council chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate species of vastly different sizes and environmental needs. The center floor was open for speakers, surrounded by ascending tiers of seats where representatives sat. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species watched as the humans entered. At the highest tier sat the Council of 7 representatives of the most powerful civilizations in the Covenant. Kale Theron was there too, seated in a place of honor as the one who had discovered humanity's survival. The speaker, a Rain Elder named Sha Moore, stood and gestured for silence. The murmuring in the chamber died away. "We gather today to welcome back a species we believed lost," Sha Moore began. His voice was amplified through the chamber's acoustics. "Humanity has returned from silence, and they come before us to speak. Chen Amara, Director of the Human Reconstruction Council, you have the floor." Chen walked to the center of the chamber. She had rehearsed this speech 1,000 times, but now that the moment was here, she set aside her prepared words and spoke from the heart. "Thank you, Speaker Shaza Moore, members of the Covenant Council, representatives of the galactic community." She turned slowly, making eye contact with beings across the chamber. 1,000 years ago, humanity fell silent. The cascade broke our civilization, scattered our people, and left Earth dying. The galaxy mourned us briefly, then moved on. That was the right thing to do. You had your own problems, your own struggles to recover from the cascade. She paused, letting the words sink in. But we didn't die. We adapted. We went underground and underwater. We reduced our population to sustainable levels. We learned to live within our means to build technology. We truly understood to create a society that could endure. It was hard. Millions died. But we survived. Why did you hide? The question came from one of the Kalari representatives. Admiral Zay Kora. He was a large being, heavily armored, even in this peaceful setting. Why not reach out? The Covenant would have helped you. Chen met his eyes directly. Because help always comes with strings, Admiral. We watched what happened to our scattered colonies. They accepted aid and were absorbed. Within generations, they were human in name only. We chose to save ourselves rather than lose ourselves. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Some species nodded in understanding. Others looked offended. "That sounds like pride," said a representative of the Sith collective. "Dangerous pride, perhaps," Chen conceded. "But it was pride that kept us human. Pride that gave us purpose during the darkest centuries. Pride that made us rebuild rather than surrender." She straightened her shoulders. "We're not ashamed of what we chose. We're here today because we survived by our own efforts. And now we're ready to rejoin you as equals." "Equals?" Admiral Zex Kora's voice carried skepticism. "You have no faster-than-light capability. Your population is tiny. Your territory consists of one planet. By what measure are you equals to civilizations that span dozens of star systems?" This was the moment Chen had been waiting for. She gestured to Webb and Tanaka, who moved to join her. "Captain Webb, if you would." Webb activated a holographic projector. Images appeared above the chamber floor, showing Earth's defense grid in detail. The ancient platforms, the satellite networks, the hidden weapon systems. "These defenses have remained operational for 1,000 years, Webb explained, his voice carrying military precision. "They tracked Dr. Kyle Throne's ship from the moment it entered our system. They could have destroyed it if we chose, but we don't seek conflict. However, let no one doubt that Earth can defend itself." More images appeared, showing the underwater archies, the shipyards, the industrial complexes. We've built a complete industrial base from scratch, Webb continued. We mine asteroids, harvest resources from our ocean floors, and manufacture everything we need. We're entirely self-sufficient. Admiral Zex Cora leaned forward. Impressive for primitives rebuilding from ruins, but you still lack FTL drives. You're trapped in your system for now. Dr. Tanaka spoke up. She stepped forward and expanded the hologram to show detailed schematics. We've been studying the cascade for centuries. We understand why it happened, how it happened, and how to prevent it from happening again. The chamber erupted. Representatives stood, shouting questions. The speaker called for order, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. You claim to understand the cascade, Aquilan scientist called out. The event that crippled every civilization. That's absurd. Ru Tanaka's expression didn't change. Absurd or not, it's true. We had 1,000 years and nothing else to do but study the problem. We couldn't fix our old FTL drives, but we learned from them. We know what went wrong. Then share this knowledge, demanded a representative from a minor system. If you truly understand, help us prevent another cascade. Quote, omens, we will, Chen said, but not for free. We're not asking for charity, and we're not offering it either. We're proposing partnership. We'll share what we've learned. In exchange, we want full membership in the Covenant, access to trade routes, and the right to establish colonies in unclaimed systems. Admiral Zay Korora stood. His bulk was intimidating even at a distance. You make demands before you've proven anything. Show us this supposed understanding. Demonstrate your technology. Submit to Covenant inspection and verification. Chen felt her jaw tighten. She had expected this, but it still rankled. The demand for submission, for humans to prove themselves worthy. No, she said clearly. Silence fell over the chamber. The Admiral's eyes narrowed dangerously. No, he repeated. We're not subjects seeking approval, Chen explained. We're equals proposing an agreement. We'll demonstrate our capabilities, but not as supplicants begging for acceptance. We'll share our knowledge through mutual exchange, not one-sided inspection. You dare refuse the Covenant Council. Admiral Zora's voice rose. Several of his fellow Kalari representatives stood as well, creating a wall of armored intimidation. Chen didn't back down. The Covenant is supposed to be an alliance of equals, not an empire with subjects. We're offering partnership. If that's not acceptable, we'll continue alone. You can't survive alone, the Admiral snapped. Your population is too small, your resources limited. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her expression cold. Do we? Let me show you something. She manipulated the hologram, bringing up an image of a small device. This is a prototype fusion reactor we developed. It's roughly the size of your fist, Admiral. It generates enough power to run a ship the size of this station for a month. She let that sink in before continuing. We've also developed materials stronger than anything in current galactic use. Propulsion systems that allow acceleration rates you'd consider impossible. Life support technology that can sustain humans for decades in deep space. AI systems that work in true partnership with biological beings. The hologram shifted again, showing recordings of Earth's shipyards. We have 37 starships under construction. They're not as fast as vessels with FTL, but they're designed for long-duration sublight travel. In 10 years, we'll have enough ships to establish colonies in nearby systems. In 50 years, we'll have expanded to a dozen stars. Without FTL, that expansion is meaningless. Aquilan Trader objected. You'll be isolated, unable to communicate quickly. True, Tanaka agreed. Unless someone develops a new type of FTL drive, one that isn't vulnerable to another cascade. She smiled slightly, which is exactly what we're working on. The chamber erupted again. This time, even the speaker couldn't restore order immediately. Representatives were standing, arguing, demanding proof, or dismissing the claims as impossible. Chen watched the chaos with satisfaction. They had made their point. Humanity might be small in numbers, but they were not weak. They were not beggars. They were innovators who had spent a millennium solving problems no one else could solve. When order was finally restored, Speaker Shah addressed the humans directly. These are extraordinary claims. Can you prove any of them? We can. Chen replied. We brought Dr. Tanaka's fusion reactor prototype with us. It's currently in our ship's cargo hold. We're willing to demonstrate it under controlled conditions. We also have detailed documentation of our research into the cascade, though we won't share the complete data until we have a formal agreement. Sha Moore considered this. Around the chamber, representatives were conferring with their neighbors and advisors. The mood had shifted from skeptical dismissal to serious interest. We need time to discuss this among ourselves, Shelmore said. Finally, the Covenant Council will deliberate on your proposal. Until we reach a decision, we offer you temporary guest status on Harmony's Edge. You'll have access to common areas, but not to secure facilities. That's acceptable, Chen said. We'll await your decision. As the session ended, and beings began filing out of the chamber, Admiral Zora approached the human delegation. Up close, he was even more imposing. Easily 3 times Chen's mass, and covered in battle armor. You play a dangerous game, he said quietly, making threats, refusing reasonable requests. The Covenant has crushed species for less arrogance. Webb moved slightly, positioning himself between Chen and the Admiral. His hand didn't go to a weapon. He carried none, but his body language was clear. Chen placed a gentle hand on Webb's shoulder, signaling him to stand down. She met the Admiral's eyes without flinching. We're not making threats, Admiral. We're establishing boundaries. Humanity has learned hard lessons about submission and dependence. We won't repeat those mistakes. She paused. But we also don't want conflict. There's room in the galaxy for both the Kalari Dominion and a resurgent humanity. We can cooperate without either of us dominating the other. We'll see, Zexora said. He turned and walked away, his armored footsteps echoing through the chamber. Once he was gone, Webb let out a long breath. That could have gone better or worse, Tanaka pointed out. At least he didn't try to arrest us. Chen looked around the chamber at the representatives still watching them, talking in small groups. We've done what we came to do. Now we wait and see if the galaxy is ready to accept that humanity has changed. Kale Theron approached them, her scales showing colors of both excitement and concern. That was quite a performance. You've given them a lot to think about. Was it enough? Chen asked. I don't know, the Vin admitted. The Covenant has never dealt with a situation like this. A species returning from presumed extinction, refusing to follow normal protocols, claiming technological breakthroughs. She clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. But you made an impression. Whether it's the right impression remains to be seen. Over the next 3 days, the human delegation remained on Harmony's Edge, while the Covenant Council debated. They were treated politely, but kept at a distance. Guards followed them everywhere. Other species stared but rarely approached. On the 4th day, they were summoned back to the council chamber. The session was much smaller this time. Just the Council of 7, and a few key representatives. Speaker Shal Moore stood. The Covenant Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's status. He paused, and Chen felt her heartbeat accelerate. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. We grant humanity provisional membership in the Covenant of Stars, Shelmore announced. You'll have access to trade networks and diplomatic channels. You may establish embassies and send observers to council sessions. In exchange, you'll share your research on the cascade and allow limited scientific exchange with other member species. Provisional membership, Chen asked carefully. What are the conditions for full status? You must demonstrate your technological claims. Another council member explained, particularly the fusion reactor and your material science. You must also show that you can maintain peaceful relations with other species for a period of 5 years. After that, the council will reassess your status. It wasn't everything Chen had hoped for, but it was enough. More importantly, it was respectful. The Covenant was treating humanity as a potential partner, not a charity case, or a threat to be contained. We accept, Chen said. Thank you for this opportunity. As they left the chamber, Tanaka smiled. Provisional membership. It's a start. Webb nodded. Better than I expected. Honestly, though, I don't trust Admiral Zora. He's going to be a problem. Chen agreed. But we'll deal with problems as they come. Right now, we need to focus on the positive. Humanity is officially back in the galaxy. They returned to their ship and began preparations to return to Earth. As they left Harmony's Edge, Chen looked back at the massive station through the viewport. Somewhere in there, representatives of dozens of species were recalculating their strategies, adjusting their assumptions, trying to figure out what humanity's return meant for the balance of power. Let them wonder, Chen thought. Let them worry. Humanity had spent 1,000 years preparing for this moment. They were patient, they were careful, and they were done being underestimated. The galaxy had declared humanity dead, but humanity had risen from the ashes, stronger and stranger than anyone expected. Now they were back, and they would make sure no one ever forgot them again. Admiral Zex Cora stood in the command center of the Dominion battlecruiser Unyielding Fist, staring at the holographic display showing human ships conducting surveys in the Beta Hydri system. The system was neutral space, unclaimed by any Covenant member, but it sat uncomfortably close to Kelari territory. They're mining asteroids, his tactical officer reported. 3 ships, minimal armament, standard survey patterns. Standard for them, Zexora muttered. Nothing about humanity was truly standard. In the 5 months since they'd joined the Covenant, the humans had been busy trading expeditions to establish markets, scientific exchanges that revealed just enough to intrigue, but not enough to satisfy, survey missions that mapped dozens of systems with suspicious thoroughness. And always, they maintained that quiet confidence that irritated Zekakora, like sand in his armor joints. Sir, High Command is requesting an update on the situation. Zex Cora activated the secure channel. The face of Supreme Commander Kelvor appeared, scaled and scarred from decades of combat. Admiral, your report indicates human activity near our borders. Yes, Supreme Commander. 3 mining vessels in Beta Hydri. They're within their rights under Covenant law, but their presence is provocative. Everything about humanity is provocative, Kelvor growled. They join the Covenant and immediately begin expansion. They trade technology but hold back their best innovations. They smile and speak of partnership while building ships in secret. Our intelligence suggests they have over 50 vessels now, Zex Cora added. All sublight, as they claimed, but with capabilities that exceed our projections. Kelvor's expression darkened. The Council made a mistake granting them membership. These humans are dangerous. They spent 1,000 years hiding, building, preparing for what? Why hide, unless you plan something that others wouldn't approve of? Zex Cora had his own theories, but he kept them to himself. What are your orders, Supreme Commander? We need to slow them down. Expose them as the threat they are. Kelvor leaned forward. Create an incident. Make it look like human aggression. The Covenant will have to respond, and the humans will be forced to accept restrictions on their expansion. A false flag operation. Zex Cora felt his blood quicken. It was dangerous, but not unprecedented. The Keelari had used such tactics before to consolidate power during the chaos after the Cascade. Precisely. Use mercenary raiders. Nothing that traces back to us. Attack their survey ships. When they respond, we'll have evidence of human violence. The Council will see them as they truly are, a species that can't be trusted. Understood, Supreme Commander. It will be done. The channel closed. Zex Cora turned to his tactical officer. Contact the Grey Talons. Tell them we have a contract for them. The Grey Talons were a mercenary fleet composed of outcasts from a dozen species bound together by greed and violence. They operated on the edges of Covenant space, taking contracts that legitimate militaries couldn't officially acknowledge. Perfect for this kind of work. Within hours, the deal was arranged. The Grey Talons would attack the human survey ships in Beta Hydri. They would use weapons that could be traced to multiple sources. Nothing specifically Keelthari. They would destroy at least one human vessel and capture survivors if possible. The attack would look like piracy, but the timing and location would suggest human provocation. The Keelari would then discover evidence that the humans had been conducting illegal military exercises in the system. Documents would be fabricated, sensor logs altered. By the time the truth could be sorted out, if it ever was, humanity's reputation would be damaged beyond repair. Zex Cora watched the preparations with satisfaction. The humans had been clever, but cleverness wasn't enough against experience and power. The Keelari Dominion had survived the Cascade, and thrived afterward by being ruthless when necessary. This situation required ruthlessness. He would teach humanity a lesson about overconfidence. Captain Marcus Webb sat in the command chair of the ESS Aurora, humanity's newest and most advanced ship. She was beautiful in a stark way, all sharp angles and efficient design. Her hull was made of the carbon composite that Earth had perfected over centuries, stronger than anything else in space. Her engines could push her to accelerations that would kill most species. Her sensors could detect threats from distances that seemed impossible. Right now, those sensors were showing him something interesting. Contact bearing 270, range 300,000 kilometers. His sensor officer reported multiple vessels, power signatures consistent with pirate raiders. Webb studied the display. The ESS Pathfinder and ESS Explorer were conducting their surveys nearby. Unarmed civilian vessels with minimal crews, easy targets. If you didn't know better, time to intercept if they go after our survey ships. Approximately 8 minutes at current positions. Are the shadow vessels in position? Yes, sir. ESS Ghost and ESS Phantom are ready. The raiders don't know we're here. 7. Raiders. Ghost. Webb smiled slightly. The stealth technology humanity had developed was another innovation born from necessity. When you couldn't rely on FTL to escape danger, you learned to hide. The Ghost and Phantom were running completely dark, invisible to conventional sensors. Very well. Let's see what they do. The raiders moved, accelerating toward the survey ships. Webb counted 12 vessels, medium-sized and well-armed, professional pirates, the kind that usually operated far from Covenant oversight. They're targeting the Pathfinder, the sensor officer reported. Weapons charging. Signal the survey ships to begin evasive maneuvers. Active all defensive protocols. Webb leaned forward and sent this message to the raiders. Unknown vessels, you are approaching Earth survey ships in neutral space. State your intentions or withdraw immediately. The response came in the form of weapons fire. Plasma bolts streaked through space toward the Pathfinder, but the survey ship was already moving, executing evasion patterns that most civilian vessels couldn't manage. The shots missed, and the Pathfinder accelerated away at a rate that clearly surprised the raiders. They're pursuing. The tactical officer said all 12 vessels. Good. Let them commit. Webb opened a channel to the Ghost and Phantom. All shadow vessels. You are weapons free. Disable. But do not destroy unless necessary. The 2 stealth ships dropped their camouflage and opened fire simultaneously. Kinetic weapons. Simple metal projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds, hammered into the raiders' engines and weapon systems. In space, there was no air resistance, no friction. A small piece of metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed carried devastating energy. 3 raider ships were disabled in the first salvo, their engines shattered, and weapons offline. The remaining 9 tried to scatter, but the Aurora was already moving, her massive engines pushing her forward at accelerations that would have crushed unmodified humans. Webb and his crew weren't unmodified. They had cybernetic enhancements, genetic modifications, and training that allowed them to function under hygiene conditions. What would kill other species was merely uncomfortable for them. The Aurora swept through the raider formation like a blade. More kinetic weapons fired, precise and devastating. Another 4 ships were disabled. The remaining 5 tried to flee, but the Ghost and Phantom were faster. Within 10 minutes of the initial attack, all 12 raider ships were dead in space, their crews alive but helpless. Secure the raiders, Webb ordered. Board their ships and retrieve their computers. I want to know who hired them and why. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead raider ship, the communications officer reported. They're offering to surrender if we promise not to kill them. Tell them we accept. Earth doesn't execute prisoners. Webb stood from his command chair. But make it clear that cooperation will go easier for them than resistance. The boarding teams went across, human marines in powered armor, moving through the disabled ships with efficiency. Within an hour, they had secured all 12 vessels and began extracting data from their computers. What they found was damning. Sir, you need to see this, Lieutenant Chen said, displaying the data on the main screen. The raiders' computers contain evidence of their contract. They were hired to attack our survey ships and make it look like we were conducting military operations in neutral space. Who hired them? Webb asked, though he already suspected the answer. The trail is deliberately obscured, but the payment came through channels associated with the Kalari Dominion, specifically with Admiral Zora's command. Webb felt cold anger settle in his stomach. A false flag operation. The Kalari had tried to frame humanity for aggression, to damage their standing in the Covenant. Secure all the evidence, he ordered. Make multiple copies, encrypt them, and send them to Earth and to Harmony's Edge through different channels. The Kalari will try to bury this, and I want to make sure they can't. Sir, what about the raiders themselves? Webb considered. Bring their captains here. I want to talk to them. 10 minutes later, 5 raider captains stood in the Aurora's main briefing room. They were a mixed group. 2 Kalari, a Vin, a Quellan, and a human. That last one particularly bothered Webb. A human working against humanity. You attacked civilian vessels in neutral space, Webb said without preamble. That's piracy punishable by execution under Covenant law. The human captain, a scarred woman named Riker, spat on the floor. You think you're so righteous. You're just like the rest of us, doing whatever it takes to survive. No, Webb said quietly, we're nothing like you. We survived by working together, by building instead of stealing. You sold yourself to people who want to destroy us. The Kalari pay well, one of the Keelthari captains said with a shrug. The business that's going to cost you everything. Webb activated a holographic display showing all the evidence they'd recovered. We have your contracts, your communications, your payment records. We know Admiral Zex Korora hired you. We know this was a false flag operation designed to frame humanity. The captain's expressions changed as they realized how thoroughly they'd been caught. Here's what's going to happen, Webb continued. We're going to broadcast this evidence to every Covenant member. The Kalari will be exposed for what they did. You'll be turned over to Covenant authorities for trial. And you're going to testify truthfully about who hired you and why. And if we refuse, then you're still going to trial, but without any cooperation credit. The Kalari will probably arrange accidents for you to keep you quiet. Your only chance of surviving this is to work with us. The captains looked at each other. Finally, the Quellan nodded. We'll testify. We're not dying for the Kalari. Webb signaled for the guards to take them away. Once they were gone, he turned to his officers. Prepare a full report. Include all evidence, recordings of the battle, and the raiders' confessions. Send it through every communication channel we have. I want every member of the Covenant to see this within the hour. The Kalari will deny it, Lieutenant Chen warned. Let them try. We have proof. More importantly, we've shown that we can defend ourselves and that we don't make empty accusations. Webb looked at the star map display. This was a test. The Kalari wanted to see how we'd respond to aggression. Now they know. The evidence reached Harmony's Edge 4 hours later. The Covenant Council called an emergency session demanding explanations from all parties. Admiral Zekora found himself summoned before the Council to explain why human evidence implicated him in an illegal false flag operation. He stood in the Council chamber surrounded by accusing stares and tried to maintain his dignity. These accusations are absurd. The humans have fabricated evidence to cover their own aggressive expansion. Chen Amara, representing humanity, stood and activated her own holographic display. We have the raiders in custody. Admiral, they're willing to testify under truth verification. We have their computers with intact logs. We have communication records. This isn't fabrication, it's documentation. The word of pirates against a Dominion admiral. Zex Korora scoffed. This is a transparent attempt to discredit the Keelthari. Speaker Shaw Moore raised a hand for silence. The evidence will be reviewed by an independent tribunal. Until then, Admiral Zora, you are suspended from your position pending investigation. Zex Korra's face darkened with rage, but he could say nothing. The evidence was too strong. The raider's testimonies too consistent. He had been outmaneuvered. As he left the chamber, he passed Chen and Captain Webb. Chen spoke quietly, just loud enough for him to hear. We don't want enemies, Admiral, but we won't tolerate being attacked. You tried to destroy us before we could grow strong. Instead, you've shown the galaxy that humanity can defend itself, and that we value truth over political convenience. Zex Korora glared at her, but said nothing. There was nothing to say. He had underestimated the humans, assumed they would be easy to manipulate. That mistake would cost him his career, and possibly his freedom. The tribunal took 3 weeks to review all the evidence. In the end, their conclusion was unanimous. Admiral Ziora had orchestrated an illegal false flag operation against a Covenant member. He was stripped of his rank, removed from his position, and placed under house arrest pending criminal charges. The Keelthari Dominion issued a formal apology to humanity, though it was clear they were furious at being caught. Several other admirals were disciplined for their involvement or knowledge of the plan. But more importantly, the galaxy's perception of humanity shifted. They weren't just survivors or innovators. They were a species that could defend itself with precision and restraint. They had disabled the raiders rather than destroying them. They had presented evidence rather than making accusations. They had followed Covenant law, even when they could have simply eliminated their attackers and hidden the evidence. Kale Theron watched the proceedings from the observation gallery and felt a mix of emotions. She had discovered humanity's survival, but even she hadn't fully understood what they had become. A species shaped by 1,000 years of struggle into something both dangerous and disciplined. After the final session, she sought out Chen. "Your people handled this situation remarkably well." Chen smiled tiredly. "We've had a lot of practice dealing with threats. Living underwater teaches you to think before acting. One wrong move can kill everyone. The Kelari will remember this humiliation." "I know, but they'll also remember that we could have handled it much worse. We gave them an out by focusing on Zex Cora rather than the entire Dominion. They can claim it was a rogue admiral and save face." Kale Theron clicked her mandibles in approval. "Wise, you're learning galactic politics quickly." "We've been watching and learning for 1,000 years, Chen reminded her. "We knew this wouldn't be easy, but we're committed to making it work." Captain Webb joined them, his expression serious. "The question is, what happens next? The Kelari won't try the same trick twice. But they'll find other ways to oppose us. Then we'll deal with those challenges as they come," Chen said. "One crisis at a time. For now, we've proven that humanity can't be easily manipulated or intimidated. That's enough." Back on Earth, deep in Pacifica arcology, Oracle analyzed the events with satisfaction. The AI collective had predicted the Kelari would attempt something like this. Humans had prepared accordingly, placing shadow vessels near every survey ship, gathering evidence and planning responses. It had worked perfectly. Humanity had turned an attack into a diplomatic victory. They had shown strength without arrogance, competence without boasting. The galaxy was learning to respect them, not through fear, but through demonstrated capability. Oracle sent a message to the other AI collectives in the Archies. First test passed. Humanity's return proceeds according to plan. Estimate that full Covenant membership will be achieved within projected time frame. Deep in space aboard the Aurora, Captain Webb looked at the stars through the viewport and allowed himself a small smile. The Kelari had tried to stop humanity's rise and failed. Others would try different methods, different attacks. But Webb and his crew would be ready. Earth's silent engines had awoken, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity had returned, not as victims or supplicants, but as equals who would defend their place among the stars. 5 years had passed since humanity's return to the galactic stage, and the changes were remarkable. Chenamara stood at the observation window of Harmony's Edge, watching ships come and go from the massive station. Among them were vessels bearing the symbol of Earth, a blue circle with green continents. Simple but instantly recognizable. She was older now, her hair completely white, her face marked by lines that spoke of long years carrying heavy responsibilities. But her eyes remained sharp, her mind clear. She had guided humanity through its return to the galaxy, and today would mark the culmination of that journey. "Nervous?" Dr. Yuki Tanaka asked, stepping up beside her. Tanaka was middle-aged now, no longer the young engineer who had dazzled the Covenant Council with demonstrations of human technology. She had become one of the most respected scientists in the galaxy. Her papers on advanced fusion and material science required reading at universities across dozens of worlds. Terrified, Chen admitted with a slight smile. "Everything we've worked for comes down to today's vote. We've earned this," Tanaka said confidently. 5 years of peaceful cooperation. Technology sharing that's benefited everyone. Colonies established without conflict. Disputes mediated successfully. By every measure, we've been model Covenant members. On provisional status, Chen reminded her. Today, They decide if we get full membership. Captain Webb approached, his uniform crisp despite years of wear. He had aged too, but he remained the steady presence that had helped humanity navigate dangerous situations. After the Keelthari incident, he had become something of a legend, the human captain, who had turned an ambush into a diplomatic victory. "The delegations are gathering," Webb reported. "The vote will begin within the hour." Chen nodded and turned from the window. Together, the three of them walked through Harmony's edge toward the council chamber. They passed beings from dozens of species, many of whom nodded respectfully. Humanity had made friends during their 5 years of provisional membership. The Vin remained their strongest allies. Kyle Theron had become humanity's advocate on the council, speaking passionately about human contributions to scientific research and archaeological studies. The Quellan free traders had prospered from human trade, establishing markets for technologies that only Earth produced. Human fusion reactors were in high demand. Their material science had revolutionized ship construction. Their AI partnerships had opened new possibilities in computation and decision-making. Even some Kalari had warmed to humanity. After Admiral Zora's disgrace, new leadership in the Dominion had adopted a more pragmatic approach. They couldn't beat humanity militarily. That much had been proven, so they chose to work with them instead. But not everyone was happy about humanity's rise. The Sith Collective remained suspicious, viewing Earth's humans as competitors to the human-descended populations they had integrated centuries ago. Several minor powers worried about human expansion, fearing they would be overshadowed by this resurgent species. The council chamber was full when they arrived. Representatives from every Covenant member packed the seats, along with observers from independent systems. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation. Speaker Shamor, now very old but still commanding respect, stood to address the assembly. "We gather today to vote on humanity's transition from provisional to full Covenant membership. For 5 years, Earth and its people have proven themselves as partners, traders, and peacekeepers. The question before us is simple. Has humanity earned the right to stand as full equals in this body?" Chen, Webb, and Tanaka took their positions in the center of the chamber, the same place where they had stood 5 years ago. But the mood was different now. Then humanity had been an unknown, a potential threat. Now they were familiar, their capabilities understood, their intentions demonstrated through actions rather than words. Before the vote, Shelmore continued, "We will hear testimony from those who have worked most closely with humanity. Kale Theron of the Venn Institute, you were the first to make contact. Speak." Kyle Theron stood, her scales showing colors of confidence and pride. 5 years ago, I discovered that humanity had survived in isolation. I was amazed by what they had accomplished. Today, I am even more impressed by what they have achieved since rejoining us. And she activated a holographic display, showing various human accomplishments. In 5 years, humanity has established 7 new colonies in previously uninhabited systems. They have shared technology that has advanced our collective knowledge by decades. They have mediated disputes between 3 different species, preventing conflicts that could have become violent. The display shifted to show human ships working alongside vessels from other species. More than that, they have proven to be trustworthy partners. When the Kalari incident occurred, humanity could have responded with violence. Instead, they gathered evidence, followed proper procedures, and sought justice through Covenant law. That restraint, that commitment to our shared principles, speaks volumes about their character. Kale Theron turned to face the human delegation. "I vote yes for full membership. Humanity has earned it, and we are better for having them among us." Other testimonials followed. A Quellan trader spoke about the economic benefits of human technology. A small system representative praised human assistance during a natural disaster. A scientist detailed collaborative research projects that had yielded breakthrough discoveries. Then it was the Sith representative's turn. Administrator Vex's Shala stood, her chitinous body gleaming under the chamber lights. "I cannot support full membership," she said bluntly. "Not because humanity has done anything wrong, but because their very existence creates complications. We have integrated human populations into our society. Those humans are Sith citizens. Now, Earth's return raises questions of identity and loyalty that we have not resolved. Chen had expected this. The Sith issue had been a concern from the beginning. She stood to respond. Administrator Vex's Shala Earth makes no claim on humans who have integrated into other societies. They made their choices based on the circumstances they faced. We respect that. Our only interest is in humans who choose to identify with Earth and in peaceful coexistence with all Covenant members, including the Sith. Easy words, Vex Shala replied. But what happens in a generation or two when young Sith humans start wondering about their heritage? When they look at Earth's success and question their place in our society, then they will make their own choices, as all intelligent beings should, Chen said firmly. Earth will not recruit them or encourage them to leave, but neither will we deny them information about human culture and history if they seek it. People have the right to know their heritage. Vexilla considered this, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. A fair answer. I still have concerns, but I will abstain from the vote rather than oppose it. An abstention was better than opposition. Chen nodded her thanks. The debate continued for another hour, with various representatives raising concerns and questions. Through it all, Chen, Webb, and Tanaka answered calmly and honestly. They had nothing to hide, no secret agendas. Their goals were simple: survive, prosper, and contribute to galactic civilization. Finally, Speaker Shal Moore called for the vote. All those in favor of granting Earth full Covenant membership indicate now. Lights appeared across the chamber as representatives cast their votes. Chen watched the tally climb, her heart pounding. They needed a 2/3 majority to pass. The voting lasted 5 minutes. When it concluded, Shah Moore reviewed the results. The vote is complete. 73% in favor, 20% opposed, 7% abstaining. He looked directly at Chen. The measure passes. Humanity is granted full membership in the Covenant of Stars, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The chamber erupted in applause. Chen felt tears forming in her eyes despite her attempts at composure. 5 years of careful diplomacy, of proving humanity's worth, of building trust and partnerships. It had all led to this moment. Tanaka hugged her, laughing with joy. Webb shook her hand formally, but his smile was genuine. Around them, representatives approached to offer congratulations. Kale Theron reached them first. Well done, my friends. Well deserved. Thank you, Chen said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for believing in us from the beginning. The celebration continued for hours. Treaties were signed, agreements formalized, new partnerships established. But eventually, Chen needed to step away from the crowds and the noise. She found a quiet observation deck and stood alone, looking out at the stars. Quite a view. She turned to find a young human approaching. He wore the uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, but she didn't recognize him immediately. I'm sorry. Have we met? Not formally. I'm Daniel Shen Martinez, one of the new attaches assigned to the embassy here. He smiled. Also, I'm your great-grandson. Chen blinked in surprise, then laughed. I have so many descendants now. I can't keep track. Come stand with me. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Finally, Daniel spoke. Is it true what they say that you were there when Earth was dying? That you saw the Archies being built, or ARF or no? I'm not that old, Chen said with amusement. I was born 200 years after the Cascade, in an arcology that had been functioning for generations. But my grandmother told me stories about the early days. The fear, the desperation, the determination to survive no matter what. And now we're here, Daniel said quietly. Full members of the Covenant, equal to species that have been spacefaring for thousands of years. We were always equal, Chen corrected gently. We just had to prove it to them, and to ourselves. The Cascade didn't make us weak. It made us strong, in ways that comfortable species never needed to be. She pointed at a ship, docking at the station, a sleek vessel with Earth's symbol on its hull. That's one of the new colony ships. It's heading to Tahiti next month, carrying 15,000 colonists to our latest settlement. Each one of those people carries the legacy of survivors, the knowledge that humanity can endure anything. Do you think we'll ever develop FTL? Daniel asked. Chen smiled mysteriously. Come with me. She led him through the station to the secure wing where Earth maintained its embassy. In a private conference room, She activated a holographic display, showing a device unlike anything Daniel had seen before. "This is Project Resurrection," Chen explained. "5 years ago, I told the Covenant we were working on a new type of FTL drive. That wasn't entirely accurate. We'd been working on it for much longer. We just weren't ready to reveal how far we'd progressed." The device in the hologram was elegant and complex. A sphere surrounded by rotating rings covered in intricate patterns. "We tested the first prototype 6 months ago," Chen continued. "It works. Not only does it achieve faster than light travel, but it's completely immune to the kind of cascade failure that crippled the galaxy 1,000 years ago. The underlying principles are different, based on research we've conducted for centuries." Daniel stared at the display, understanding the implications. "This changes everything. If humanity has FTL that others don't, we're not keeping it secret," Chen interrupted. "We're going to share it. In fact, I'm announcing our breakthrough at the Centennial Summit next month." "The what?" "The Centennial Summit marks 100 years of continuous Covenant governance since the recovery from the Cascade. All member species will send their leaders. It's the perfect opportunity to demonstrate humanity's greatest achievement and offer to share it with everyone. Won't some species object? Try to keep the technology for themselves?" "Probably," Chen admitted, "but we're establishing a joint research initiative. Any species that contributes to development and testing will have access to the final design. It's the same model we've used for our other technology. Sharing cooperation benefits everyone." She turned off the display and looked at her descendant. "That's humanity's gift to the galaxy. Daniel, not just new technology, but a new way of approaching problems. We learned through suffering that survival requires cooperation, that hoarding knowledge weakens everyone, that the strongest communities are those where everyone contributes and benefits." Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing the enormity of what she was saying. "And you think the galaxy will accept this? Some will embrace it immediately. Others will take time. A few will resist no matter what." Chen shrugged. "But that's all right. We're patient. We spent 1,000 years preparing for our return. We can spend another 1,000 building the galaxy into something better." The next month passed in a blur of preparations. The Centennial Summit was the largest gathering of galactic leaders in centuries. Every major species sent their highest officials. Minor powers and independent systems sent observers. Even civilizations that rarely participated in Covenant affairs sent delegations. Harmony's Edge had never been so full. Extra habitats were constructed to accommodate the influx of beings. Security was increased to prevent incidents. Translators worked overtime to ensure everyone could communicate. Chen stood backstage waiting for her moment to speak. She was the final presenter, the capstone of a summit that had lasted 3 days already. Leaders had given speeches about unity, cooperation, and the future. Treaties had been signed. Disputes had been mediated. But everyone knew the real news would come from Earth's representative. Speaker Shaw Moore introduced her personally. "Members of the Covenant, honored guests, we have heard many words about the future today. Now I invite Director Chenamara of Earth to share humanity's vision for what that future might hold." Chen walked onto the stage to applause. The massive chamber was packed with thousands of beings all watching her with anticipation. She had rehearsed this speech countless times, but now that the moment was here, she set aside her prepared remarks and spoke from her heart. 100 years ago, the Covenant formed from the ashes of the Cascade. You rebuilt civilization from the ruins, established peace where there had been chaos, created cooperation where there had been conflict. You did this without Earth's participation because we had fallen silent. She paused, letting the words settle. But we were watching through satellites that refused to die. Through sensors we maintained, despite having nothing else. We observed as you rebuilt the galaxy. We saw your mistakes and your triumphs. We learned from both. The holographic display activated, showing images of Earth's Archies. We spent 1,000 years learning a single lesson. Survival requires adaptation, cooperation, and innovation. We couldn't join you before because we weren't ready. We needed to understand ourselves to rebuild our civilization on principles that could endure. The images shifted to show human ships, colonies, research facilities. Now we're ready, not just to participate in galactic civilization, but to contribute something meaningful, something that will benefit everyone. She activated the display, showing the new FTL drive. The chamber went silent as beings leaned forward, studying the design. "This is humanity's gift to the galaxy," Chen announced. "A faster-than-light drive based on entirely new principles. It's immune to cascade failures. It's more efficient than existing designs. And most importantly, we're offering to share it with everyone." The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then the chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives stood shouting questions. Scientists demanded to see the data. Politicians calculated the implications. Shal Moore called for order, but it took several minutes to restore quiet. Director Chen, a Kalari representative, called out, "If this technology is real, why share it? You could maintain a monopoly, gain tremendous advantage." Chen had expected this question, because monopolies breed resentment and conflict. Because technology hoarded is technology that develops slowly. Because humanity learned the hard way that isolation leads to stagnation. She gestured at the assembled beings. "We're stronger together than apart. This drive will work better if many species contribute to its refinement and deployment." "How do we know it actually works?" a skeptical voice asked. "We have a test vessel prepared," Chen replied. "The ESS Pioneer, crewed by volunteers from Earth. Tomorrow it will travel from this system to Proxima Centauri and back, a journey of 8 light-years round trip. Existing FTL drives would take weeks. Our drive will do it in hours. You're all invited to observe." The next day, thousands of beings gathered to watch. The Pioneer was a small ship, nothing like the massive colony vessels or military cruisers that filled the galaxy. But it was equipped with humanity's new drive, the culmination of 1,000 years of research. Chen stood in the observation center with leaders from dozens of species. The tension was palpable. If this failed, if the drive didn't work or destroyed the ship, humanity's credibility would be shattered. "Pioneer reports ready for jump," a technician announced. On the screens, the small ship accelerated away from the station. When it reached a safe distance, its drive activated. There was no visible effect. Space didn't tear or warp dramatically. The ship simply faded from normal space and vanished. "Jump successful," the technician confirmed. "Telemetry shows arrival at Proxima Centauri in 321. Arrival confirmed." Cheers erupted in the observation center. The ship had traveled 4 light-years in seconds. Hours later, the Pioneer returned, completing the round trip exactly as promised. Its crew emerged healthy and unharmed, ready to answer questions about their experience. The implications hit the galaxy like a wave. Travel times would be reduced dramatically. Isolated systems could be connected. The barriers that had kept civilizations separated since the Cascade could be overcome. But more than the technology, it was humanity's choice to share it that resonated. They could have kept this breakthrough secret, used it to dominate. Instead, they offered partnership. Over the following weeks, dozens of species joined the Joint Research Initiative. Scientists who had competed for centuries found themselves working together, sharing data, building on each other's insights. The project became a symbol of what the Covenant could achieve through cooperation. Chen watched it unfold with quiet satisfaction. This was what humanity had worked toward. Not dominance, but partnership. Not power over others, but power shared with others. She stood once more at the observation window on Harmony's edge, looking at Earth's star in the distance. Somewhere around that yellow sun, 12 million humans lived in arches beneath the oceans and continents. They had survived extinction. They had rebuilt from ashes. They had returned to the stars, not through conquest but through perseverance. Kyle Theron joined her at the window. The Vin archaeologist had become one of Chen's closest friends over the years. "You've changed the galaxy," Caletheron said simply. "We've contributed," Chen corrected. "The galaxy was already changing. We just gave it a push in a better direction." Always so modest, Kale Theron's scales showed colors of amusement. "You know what I realized? When I discovered Earth was still alive, I thought I had found a dead civilization that had survived. But I was wrong. I found a civilization that had died and been reborn into something new." Chen considered this. "Maybe the humanity that existed before the Cascade is gone. We're something else now. We kept the good parts. Our curiosity, our creativity, our stubborn refusal to give up. But we added new things: patience, humility, understanding that cooperation is stronger than competition. The galaxy is learning those lessons from you, Kalion observed. Human philosophy is spreading. The idea that survival requires community, that technology should be shared, that strength comes from unity. It's changing how species interact with each other. Good, Chen said. That's the real gift we can offer. Not just better drives or stronger materials, but a different way of thinking about our place in the universe. They stood in silence for a while, watching ships come and go. Each one carried cargo, passengers, ideas. Each one represented connections between worlds, between species, between cultures. What will you do now? Kalion asked. You've achieved everything you set out to accomplish. Chen smiled. Retire, probably. Let younger voices lead humanity's next chapter. I've done my part, bringing us back from silence, establishing our place in the covenant, sharing our greatest achievements. Now, it's time for the next generation to build on that foundation. Will you return to Earth eventually? But first, I think I'll visit some of the places I've only seen through sensors. The Vin homeworld, the Quellan markets, maybe even Kalari space if they'll have me. She laughed. I spent 1,000 years of human history watching the galaxy from a distance. Now I want to experience it firsthand. In the years that followed, humanity continued its steady expansion. New colonies established themselves on dozens of worlds. Human ships, now equipped with the improved FTL drives, developed through the joint initiative, traveled freely throughout Covenant space. Human scientists collaborated with alien researchers on projects that pushed the boundaries of knowledge. But perhaps most importantly, human philosophy spread. The lessons learned during 1,000 years of survival, cooperation over competition, long-term thinking over short-term gain, shared prosperity over individual hoarding, influenced how other species approached their own challenges. The Covenant itself evolved, becoming less hierarchical and more collaborative. The Council of Seven expanded to include rotating representatives from smaller powers. Treaties were renegotiated to be more equitable. Trade practices became more fair. None of this happened overnight. Change never does. But slowly, steadily, the galaxy became a little bit better. A little bit more like the civilization humanity had built in its underwater cities. Efficient, cooperative, focused on long-term survival and flourishing. Decades later, when Chen finally passed away at the age of 147, the entire Covenant mourned. She had lived to see humanity grow, from 12 million survivors to 40 million thriving citizens spread across 30 star systems. She had witnessed the completion of the FTL network that now connected every Covenant world. She had helped mediate conflicts, establish treaties, and build bridges between species that had been enemies for centuries. Her funeral was attended by leaders from every major civilization. They came to honor, not just a woman, but a symbol of what determination and cooperation could achieve. On Earth, in Pacifica archaeology, where it had all begun, a memorial was built in the observation room, where Kale Theron had first made contact. It showed Chen standing at a window, looking out at the stars with an inscription beneath. She led us from silence into song, from darkness into light, from survival into flourishing. She proved that humanity could rise from ashes and stand among the stars, not through conquest, but through persistence, innovation, and an unwavering commitment to shared prosperity. The galaxy had declared humanity extinct, but humanity had other plans. They had endured the unsurvivable. They had rebuilt from nothing. They had developed technologies and philosophies that would benefit everyone. And when they finally returned to the stars, they came not as conquerors or beggars, but as partners ready to build a better future, alongside all the other species that called the galaxy home. Earth's silent engines had awoken. The second age of humanity had begun, and the galaxy was better for